Hey everybody, this is Norm. Just wanted to give you a little encouragement today. My encouragement is going to be based on Daniel 1, and I'm going to go ahead and just read the passages to you here, and I'll explain kind of something the Lord showed me as far as spiritual nourishment. And the passage goes like this. It starts in chapter 1, and then starts in verse 3. I'll just tell you the story. Then the king ordered the chief of his court officials to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and nobility, young men without any physical defect, handsome, etc. And it goes on, it says, the king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that enter the king's service. Now Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were 4 of the people that were chosen. But it says, Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself in this way. The official said, I'm afraid, my lord, who has assigned you food and drink, why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? And then Daniel said, please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. And so he agreed to this. And at the end of the 10 days, all 4 of them looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. Okay, so generally, this is what the Lord showed me. This is coming from a completely metaphorical point of view here, so don't think I'm like telling people you can't eat meat or nothing like that. But anyway, a lot of times we work our bodies, we get our work out physically, we work out and exercise and everything like that. And the Lord always talks about getting spiritual nourishment as well. Now, there's a couple of ways you can receive it. There's God's way, which is spending time with Him, spending time in the Word, spending time in prayer, worshiping Him, praising Him, and getting your spiritual nourishment that way, like spending daily time with Him. A lot of what other people will do to get their version of nourishment is they'll drink alcohol, they'll absorb themselves in food, they'll absorb themselves in like movies, video games, anything like that. Now don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with watching a movie or playing a game or something to that effect, but what a lot of people do is if they're hurting, if they're going through some rough times, what they'll do is they'll absorb themselves in things like alcohol and things of this nature to try to help ease the pain. And really what that does is that it kind of masks the pain, because it doesn't really help the pain to go away. A lot of times you end up feeling numb, you don't really feel all that great. And this is kind of what the Lord was showing me, is that the king was feeding him this meat and this wine. Well, the meat and the wine in this case are those things like the movies and all these other things that, you know, they're okay, but they're not as nourishing as the vegetables that Daniel and his friends had. You'll see that they were better nourished when they were eating the vegetables. And the vegetables represent God and spending time with Him. When you spend time in the Word, time in praise and worship, you get peace, you get rest, you get restoration, you get encouragement, you get counsel. You get all these wonderful things that the Lord can offer you. And when you're going through a hard time, when you're going through pain and suffering and things of this nature, I'm just kind of thinking now of a time when, in the Bible where Paul and Silas were in prison, and they were praising God, and they were praising God, and so much the prison walls shook. I mean, that's pretty powerful if you think about it. I mean, if I were in prison, probably the last thing I would be thinking about would be, in my own humanness, I'd be thinking about all the other stuff. But just focusing on Jesus and everything, I'll tell you, man, it makes a huge difference. It's like when you're under an umbrella of peace, you're like in an eye of a hurricane with all this stuff swirling around you. When you're with Jesus, you're in peace. And that's a lot of what the vegetables in this, to me, represent. It represents spending time with Jesus. You'll note that Daniel was so much more nourished than the other people. He looked healthier, he felt healthier, and that's like what Jesus will do for you. He will nourish you spiritually, He'll nourish you mentally in here, He'll work on your heart, He'll take care of you. And I guess basically the other side of the story is, the alcohol and eat binging and, doing all these things spending hours upon hours watching TV or things like that, they're not going to nourish you. They're only going to help mask like the pain, but the pain is still going to be there. You know, after a few days, the pain or anything that you're going through will probably be a little bit easier or whatever, but it's going to be a lot harder of a road, I think, if you're not spending time with Jesus and just spending time in the Word. So anyway, that's my encouragement for you today. Basically, the real food and nourishment is with Jesus, is with God, spending time in His Word, spending time in the Bible, and just spending time praising and worshiping Him. And, that's where you're going to find real rest and encouragement for your souls. And that's all for me today.